to this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through the industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have Ken Paskins, CEO of the Shift Spot. He's an operator, integrator, and a coach. And we'll be talking to him about, about accountability, how one can drive accountability to get what they want as a business owner. Welcome to the show, Ken.
AJ, thanks. This is a great pleasure. I'm so excited to be here.
You are welcome to the show. You are welcome to India, and not just in India, but a lot of business owners across the globe will certainly benefit from your insights, your understanding about this accountability thing. So first, to understand from you, Ken, in today's time, what is accountability when everything is, it's all so divided that the CMO and the CFO and the CEO and the manager and the sub-managers and the janitor, to the janitor, everybody knows what is in their patch and what they have to do. So how can accountability become such a problem when nobody is ready to take accountability if shit happens?
Well, if nobody's willing to take it, then you have a problem. So you probably haven't set up your company correctly or your culture correctly, because it all starts with the top, right? And as the CEO of any organization, you need to understand how to drive accountability, and you need to take the time to do that from the ground up. So we're operating in a very highly competitive, rapid changing business environment today, as you know. You've got AI, you've got all sorts of macroeconomic factors coming into play. So we've got to stay nimble. We've got to stay proactive. We got to always look for ways to improve. And you got to get work done through people. And you got to trust that people are going to hold themselves accountable as you hold them accountable to get the results that you need.
Right. So how can you do that? Means getting work from people is one thing.
Yeah.
But actually holding them accountable is a different thing, because when there is as they say, that success has many parents.
Yes.
But failure is always an orphan. So I guess the same is with accountable. Very few people want to be accountable or held accountable for anything wrong that they have done. And the business owner has to find out exactly how things are happening. So how does he do that? What are the tools? Is there a step-by-step for a business owner, especially small business owner, entrepreneur, anywhere in the world?
Yeah, I mean, it's not just small business. I'll get to your question, AJ. I mean, my experience, if you look at my bio, I've managed P&Ls up to $500 million. The past 8-9 years, I've been stepping in as a COO and helping smaller business owners, say 50 million and below, actually drive accountability and get the results that they want and desire, et cetera. And I will answer your question. There is a way to go about that. So if you look at just some statistics out there, according to the Harvard Business Journal, peers that drive accountability and have accountability as a cultural organization generally outperform by 240%. So that's a substantial return right there. And then if you look at the impacts of lack of accountability, right, you've got negative consequences such as missed deadlines, increased costs, reduced engagement, reduced quality of work, et cetera, right? That significantly negatively impact both the top line and the bottom line. But to answer your question specifically on what are some things that you can do, it really boils down to 5 separate buckets, if you will. So number 1 is set clear expectations. And I know that sounds easy for a guy like you that interacts with at least 1 million people a year, right? So, that sounds easy to you, but believe it or not, so few do it. And we'll walk in and work with owners, and they'll get very frustrated. Why do they not understand what I want? Why can nobody execute against the vision as I need it? Why do I see it and get it, but nobody else does? Typically, it comes down to expectation setting, right? So we need to be very clear on what we're communicating to our employees. And we also, and a little trick of the trade that I used to use when I was an executive at large organizations like Oracle, but it takes the human typically up to 7 times to see or hear something for it to sink in, right? Some of us are audio. Some of us are visual, right? So if you say, I see what you're saying, Ken, you're more visual, right? If you say, I hear you, you're more audio. So if you're going to set expectations with an employee, understand how they receive those messages, right? And how and get them in front of them, specifically expectations and what you need from them, multiple ways and multiple mediums. So if there's ShiftSpot, my company, we actually help business owners work with them to do that. So that's number one, setting clear expectations. The other is lead by example. Now, once again, that sounds pretty silly, right? If you think about it, right? Lead by example. I like to tell a lot of CEOs, hey, look, expect 90% from your employees, and not just CEOs, leaders as well. Expect 90% from them of what you're willing to give, right? If you give 50%, they're going to give 40, right? So we have to lead the charge like any great general, any great sports coach, etc. And we have to lead by example. And at the ShiftSpot, we actually help people understand the difference between leadership and management, how to execute better from those perspectives. So number 3, give regular feedback. Now, feedback is not, in passing, hey, good job there, right? Feedback is not, hey, I need more out of you. That's some of it, but sit down and make it either a monthly objective or a quarterly objective. Have some structure around it. Make it a two-way dialogue as well. Look for ways that you can improve. I always try to challenge people to ask, like, hey, I'm going to give you some feedback to help you grow as an individual. I'd like you to give me feedback as well, and give that, because without that, right, you can't expect anything to change, specifically when we're talking about taking results and driving it through accountability, which is ultimately ownership. And then speaking of ownership, number 4, foster a culture of ownership. Encourage your team members to take ownership, own responsibility, work collaboratively to achieve their goals. And if you see people on the team that are not willing to do that, you generally have a person that is not a core value fit. Get rid of them, right? Because you don't want that poisoning the rest of your organization. And then, the other one, all of these are very simple as you go through them, but hold everyone accountable, right? Don't treat people special. Set consequences for missed goals, missed deadlines, right? Be accountable to your work and have them be accountable to their work. And then, peer-to-peer accountability. The one thing that I will say that I actually disagree a little bit is people don't like to be accountable. I actually believe that most people want to be accountable, but they don't fully understand how. But if you set the expectations, if you lead by example, if you give feedback, if you foster that culture, people are going to want to step in and naturally perform and achieve.
Right, Ken. So what you said was, in terms of first point, expectation setting.
Yep.
Now, in a big organization, normally, if you see from medium to bigger organization, you have the KPIs,
Yep.
the job description.
Yep.
Everybody knows at the lower level, and at the higher level, if you see at the leadership level,
Yep.
they have that background to understand things very well, what is expected of them. And in fact, this top leadership is always in connect with the CEO or the founder.
Yep.
Now, how is it that there the communication goes wrong or can go wrong, and why then their accountability does become an issue there, or is it something else?
Yeah.
Or a second question along with that is that within founders, now a lot of companies are coming up, and founders start with a vision, but as they seem to grow bigger, there again, people start having problems with, in terms of accountability. I am doing more, he is doing less, and all those factors can hamper the working, or can even destroy a great firm also.
Yep. So I think your second question was, as a founder and a CEO and a visionary, as I'm growing the organization, how do I actually maintain and keep accountability? Is that a fair statement? Okay.
Right.
So the interesting thing, something that I tell people this all the time. I see these same movies over and over again. And generally, when in that scenario, what I see over and over again is, let's take you, AJ. You start a brand new business, and let's call it a painting company. You're painting, and then you hire 2 employees and then 3 employees, and guess what? Everything comes to AJ, right? we're going to have pizza on Fridays. AJ, do you want cheese pizza or pepperoni pizza? You make that decision. Suddenly, all the decisions are coming to you, right? So then as those CEOs grow, right, through the organization and their employees grow, and I'll get to the connectivity on accountability, they actually typically, a lot of times what I'll see is they teach, it's a double-edged sword. They'll teach their employees not to think, right? They lose that, what I call the thinking gene, right? Of making those decisions themselves, right? So then when you have that and that inability, right? And all that stuff is hitting your plate rather than the employees, right? You break down accountability, right? It's really hard to then at that point actually have an organization that is fully accountable because they are entrusting you and you're allowing them to put all of the burden on your shoulders to make all those decisions. So initially in your second scenario, as the CEO grows from the visionary and grows the organization, the very first thing we need to do at the very beginning, some of us actually lack the leadership skills and the management skills, which we can work on and groom. But at the beginning, we want controls because of cash flow, because we're just control people, because we don't understand what it takes to scale an organization. And then we find ourselves in that situation. So to get out of that dynamic, a lot of times you got to flip it back on the employees and you got to teach them how to think again, right? So AJ comes to me and he says, let's say you work for me. Hey, just got off the call with this client. They're really, really mad and they want their money back. What should I do? A lot of CEOs and owners at that earlier stage will say, well, I'll give Jimmy his money back, or we have a no refund policy, or let me talk to him, or something like that. Don't do that. You're stealing the opportunity to teach them. Flip it back and say, you know what, AJ, I appreciate you bringing that problem to me. I hired you because you're the right person in the right seat and you're a professional. What do you recommend and why? Right? Do that a couple times. They will begin to learn, right? And then you can start to drive accountability through the expectations, example, feedback, culture, and all of those things. You can then begin to drive and make shifts.
Right. And in terms of, as you said, there should be consequences. What about founders? If they are co-founders, if there are 2 or 3 co-founders, who sets the expectations and who sets even the consequences? Can they do? Is it possible? So, is there a way out of this situation where they can be nicely accountable and the firm actually scales up?
Yeah, that's an awesome question. And I'll be honest, it's also one of the most difficult situations for a lot of people to find themselves in. So we have a couple members in our community actually in the Shift Spot that are actually co-founders, and they went through a merger, if you will, within 2 organizations came together. They both sit in different seats, right? I will keep some of the confidentiality out of it, but one's head of sales and one's the CEO, and one of them, the head of sales, does not actually do what they say they're going to do, right? And they don't own up to things and everything, right? So that actually festers a lot across the organization because number one, as I stated earlier, leading by example. Once the people or below see that, the culture then begins to break down and you lose accountability across the organization. It creates a very painful dynamic at times that, quite honestly, only the founders can solve. Now, hopefully they put together some agreements to help them actually get through that. Maybe there's a board of advisors that can help actually solve that problem. But if you can't change that as founders, it will negatively impact your organization significantly. It will hurt any exit strategy you could have as an organization. So that must be addressed, right? And it's okay for owners to be owners. They're still entitled to their equity. They're still entitled to their dividends. They're still entitled to all that. The one thing that they're not entitled to, but they're not entitled to employment if they're going to impact the organization that way. So we got to have those really difficult conversations and help people understand how they're impacting basically the return on the organization and help them actually change it into something else that they can be accountable for, hold themselves accountable for, and lead. and or just step out into the owner's box and take their cash, take their dividends and everything, and enjoy that. But it's essential that we don't find ourselves in that situation, and it's unfortunate at times.
Right, right. Now, your mission is to help CEOs and owners finally solve their core problem that they are shackled with. And one of the problems is most of the time they seem to be working in the business
Yeah,
and not on the business.
correct.
So, how do they solve this problem? Sometimes the problem is that you don't want to tell or you don't have those sort of employees whom you can share everything. And
Yeah,
secondly, you don't want to come to a situation where there is, a lot of in this great resignation and whatever the quiet quitting, all these times, the employee may just move out.
yeah.
So sometimes they just want to keep those things in watertight compartments. So how does it work within whatever system and in different places across the globe? How can they make sure that they are still getting enough time to work on the business instead of just working in the business all the time?
Whew, let me see if I can take a 5-hour conversation and boil it down to 2 minutes. All right, I'll be honest with you. That is the entire reason. The entire reason I went from running very large organizations to helping CEOs to now forming this community, the Shift Spot, is very specifically to help owners go from working in the business. And for listeners out there that may not understand what that means, let's use the same silly analogy. AJ and I work in a painting company, and I'm out there painting every day, right? That's working in the business, doing the work. And then I come home and I do the books and I do all that other stuff. And I'm spending all the time doing the stuff that I hate. What I'd really like to do is I'd really like to go out and meet new clients. I'd really like to network. I'd really like to set elaborate visions of taking my painting company to other states or, India, right? But I'd like to do those things, but I don't. And the reason that it's difficult, right, is it means, running a business and scaling the business is like a chessboard, right? And you've got to have a lot of different pieces and components in place. You got to have the right people in the organization. And, with what we do at the Shift Spot, we bring in experts to actually focus on helping you understand that, how to do that. You have to understand the aspects of leadership and management and what that means, right? You have to understand operations and systems and how those systems and operations and processes, how they can help you scale the organization. Because a lot of times we think it's easier, just hire another painter, maybe a bad analogy. But if we have the right processes and systems, we might not have to do that, number one. But number two, we eliminate a lot of human error, right? So you've got to look at leadership, you've got to look at your people, you've got to look at systems and processes. You you said the word earlier, KPIs, you've got to understand your KPIs. You've got to put yourself in a position where you're making decisions based upon facts versus emotions, which a lot of times we find ourselves do, right? And you've got to surround yourself and set up the environment of accountability with all of those components, which, as I said, honestly, it's probably a 5-hour conversation. But once you do that and you control yourself and you hold yourself accountable to actually doing those things and trusting and empowering, because our goal as leaders is to get work done through others, not through us, right? Others. So if we do that, we can then begin to elevate, and we can then begin to do the fun things, and we can begin to work, on the business versus in it and in the weeds.
Right. You have been a fractional CEO, a CEO in many companies,
Yes.
from pre-revenue to $200 million, and specifically business owners in chaotic industries.
Yes.
So when you say chaotic industries, does it mean inefficiency, unaccountable?
Yeah, it's funny, and I apologize. I hope I didn't interrupt you. I just started the chuckle.
No problem.
Yeah.
Right.
I believe I coined that term because I have not heard anyone else use that term before. So here's chaos industries, and every time I speak to somebody in this industry, they laugh, right? So chaos industries, HVAC, construction, I won't name all of them, landscaping, mechanical engineering, right? Painting, for example, all those industries. Now, why? You take a lot of HVAC companies, they're growing like crazy, right? They will have huge margins typically, right? They will have huge growth rates. They will have lots of cash coming in, right? We've got a CEO in our community that owns an $89 million painting company. Okay, $89 million painting company. Some of his clients are Disney, et cetera, et cetera. And I coined that, or I use that term with him, and I was like, all right, so you're in the chaos industry. I'll keep his name out. Here's what that means: high growth, high margin, but no process, no system. Everybody runs around with like a chicken with their head cut off. And we think when we get to be 5 million, it's going to be easy. 10 million, it's going to be easy. 20 million, it's going to be easy. Poor guy's at 89 million, and it's still not easy because they have not focused on the basics of building and running a business, which is what we help in. So that's the chaos industries, AJ.
Right. No problem. This chaos is not bad because some industries are very vibrant. Like I come from a journalism background, especially in television newsroom or a news agency, it's also a lot of chaos. It means there is a lot of activity going on all the time because so much of news is just, there's so much of inflow of news. I get it. Yeah. But in terms of, being a fractional CEO or CEO, and that now there's everything fractional, CMO and whatnot.
Right.
Does this indicate for any business that is it a good sign to get them, or does it indicate that you don't have the right people within your organizations? Would you then hold a fractional CEO or CMO accountable, or would you hold yourself accountable that you are not being able to put systems in place, expectations in place, and that is why you need somebody from outside to come and see things from a little bit of distance, and again coming close to all the systems and telling you what the right thing is to do. How do you look at this? Because fractional CEO and all that stuff is coming up very strongly. I see it in a positive light, but I had wanted to ask this question in a much more deeper manner, so I'm asking you this way.
Yeah, certainly. So it's not a bad thing. And let's look at it this way, right? So when I was in corporate America before I stepped down, I was making a lot of money. Okay, I was making a lot of money. I was getting a lot of stock options, and there were heavy investments put in me in training, and I gained a lot of experience. Your typical CEO, 10 million, 20 million and below, would not attract me if I was going to work there full time. I just wouldn't be interested, right? Not only that, but a lot of owners out there, unfortunately, don't even know how to attract that talent. They don't know how to interview for it. They don't know how to absorb them. They don't know how to onboard them. They don't know how to empower them, right? So using a fractional executive allows you to bring significant horsepower to the table that you may not be able to do otherwise, right? Because you're not going to give them the equity that they're going to desire to full time. You're not going to compensate them, on what they deserve full time, right? But you're going to get a better return. So hopefully that answers part of that question. You were really good. You gave me like 10 questions, I think, if I counted them correctly. So yes, you should hold them accountable. Nobody's ever not accountable, right? I don't care if you're part-time, full-time. I don't care if you're the janitor, to use what you said earlier. I don't care who you are. And there should be agreements in place to do that, right? So that's what I've done for years, and realizing that these owners, by the way, that there's lots of ways that they can get help. They can get it through professional coaches. They can get it through fractional executives, like how I operated. They can hire boards. They can join EO. They can join Vistage and all that. And quite honestly, that's another reason why we formed this community, right? Because we want to surround the CEO with the experts that they need, when they need it, and how they need it. And that's with experts around marketing, right? HR, right? COOs, you name it, in a confidential environment to help progress them forward. So hopefully I answered all your questions. If I missed something, just throw it back at me.
You are the master, you are the expert. You have indeed answered all of those questions, because some questions come in my minds, and I just don't want to lose them.
Yeah.
And it's important to at least ask the master. So you have done that part, but there is so much to learn and understand from you, Ken, and for that, this one podcast is not enough. And so first, to understand from you what happens at the shift spot, and secondly, to learn a lot of things, you have your own podcast, Leadership Tools of Titans, the shift spot. So tell us about both. What do you do there? Who are your guests? What type of clients come to you? What type of clients can approach you? How can they know more about it all?
Yeah, excellent. So I appreciate that. So the Shift Spot it's a CEO and coaching and peer advisory community, right? And our target market is CEOs and owners in businesses basically 50 million and below, or 100 employees below. And if you look at that, at least in the United States, I don't know about India, but that makes up 98% of the companies in the United States are 100 or below, right? Believe it or not, 89% are 20 employees or below, right? We're generally working with CEOs and owners that are either new up to maybe 8 years of experience, right? So the first thing that happens is you join our community, right? And we run through a gap analysis of your organization. It's an exhaustive questionnaire that look for gaps, such as process breakdowns, lack of KPIs, onboarding, et cetera. You join and you get an app that you download, and you can check out content, join different groups, et cetera. You get expert coaching on a week-to-week basis. You get an accountability guide that holds you accountable on a week-to-week basis, 15-minute call. And there's a live, and I'm not going to hit all of it, there's a live issues resolution section as well, which we do a couple of those a week. And those are really cool because you can imagine a group of virtual CEOs around a table solving problems. So we had a guy that owned 15 different healthcare, vitamins and health stuff like that. And he was struggling, and he was looking at laying off some folks. And we got into that dialogue about laying the folks off with the other CEOs. And we flipped it back. We're like, hey, we're looking at the bottom line. Why don't we look at the top line? Right? Let's look at how we attack the top line from a revenue perspective. And we created some strategies that actually helped him there. And he implemented 4 different strategies that helped him actually grow his revenues pretty substantially to then retain his staff. So we do that on a weekly basis to actually grow and learn with each other, right? There's some folks out there never negotiate a commercial lease. I'm sure there's a CEO in the group that has, right? And it's professionally facilitated. But that's the membership, and we all believe in that we're all in this journey in life, right? My goal in life is to help as many and touch as many CEOs and business owners as I can, so they can achieve their vision and get the freedom and balance that they want, and to use the term that we spoke of earlier, start working on the business versus in the business.
Right. And so how can they get in touch with you if people want to?
Yeah, just check us out, www.theshiftspot.com, or feel free to shoot me an email as well, ken@theshiftspot.com, and be happy to answer any questions. Even if somebody just wants to pick my brain on something, I have the attitude, if I get on the phone with you, I'm not gonna look to sell you. If I can add value, great. If I can't, oh well, we'll walk away as friends and hopefully stay in touch.
Wonderful. On this note, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
AJ, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much.